I'm going to get started here, and we'll get rolling on the HEADScape conversation and breakout session, whatever you want to call it. My name's, again, Brian Cremines. I'm the account manager here at Acoustics. I handle the Western region, and today we're talking about, in this breakout session, HEADScape. So overview, for those of you that are not familiar with HEADScape. HEADScape is a modular software. Actually, I should say not HEADScape, Soundscape. The software we offer is called HEADScape. It deals with soundscape pain. So developed as a modular software for the Soundscape application, and it's according to the ISO standard of 12913. It also offers several modules for different data acquisition and analysis purposes. It explains factors relevant for measurement and reporting in soundscape studies, as well as planning, designing, and management of soundscape. It starts off with ISO 12913-1, which came out in 2014. It has three parts. Part 1 deals with the definition and conceptual framework. Part 2 came out in 2018, which deals with the data collection and reporting methodology. And lastly, in 2019, the ISO standard was renewed for data analysis purposes. So how does our software fit into the grand scheme of things or in the soundscaping world? So as you can see here in this flow chart, the hardware, the software, we have everything you need to be successful in implementing and testing for the ISO standard 12913-2. You will require, let me turn on my laser pointer, it does require our low cost head, the BSU. It will require an application for the smartphone or the tablet. And you'll need our HEADScape software. You can also use the BSU or our low-cost head with our Scobold, but not with our Squadriga 3 at this time. Hopefully later, as development purposes go through, we will see a change in that configuration. But nevertheless, so to run this test, you need a Scobold, low-cost head, low-cost software in the standard, or the low-cost head, the free tablet software, cell phone software, our low-cost software, again, in the ISO standard. So it's simple setup, just a single cable. You can see an example here out in the fountain area with our BSU set up using our B2U software. And what you'll get is the resultant data. If you do take data with the Scobold, you will get the GPS. If you take it with the Scobold, the GPS turned on, and with the webcam, you can have video of your operation of your recording. You can have the location of your recording, and then obviously you get the data analysis to be compliant within the standard. So what exactly do you need to be compliant with the standard? We offer two modules, 5600 and 5601. 5600 is the basic framework, and that includes the player, the map viewer, the video viewer, the documentation, channel editor, data lister, head navigator, file viewer, and the export capability. In 5601, you get the time data analysis project, which offers you analysis and comparisons. It gives you 8 different analyses within the software. It gives you time signal representation. It gives you the standard ISO 12913-2 export format that the data needs to be presented in to be compliant within the standard. It also gives you A-weighted, C-weighted, and percentile levels of sound pressure, average, cubic means, percentiles, and quotients for loudness, and a few other analyses. You need both of these to be 100% compliant with the standard to provide data and meet the requirements of the standard itself. So right now we are currently on HEADScape version 1.1 dot something. It is coming out with 2 dot something rather quickly. It's very simple and easy user interface. Those of you that are Artemis users will recognize this interface quite well, which you have the head navigator. You click the button, there we go. You have the head navigator, you have the player and playback controls, you have the GPS map and video viewer, you have your documentation viewer, and the file viewer itself. And inside the file viewer, you can also see the analysis result graphs as well from each HDF that you select. All these tools are freely configured via drag and drop. You can move these all around in whatever format or setup you prefer. If you don't like the GPS in the middle, you don't like the map in the middle, you can move them to the right, completely up to you. It has individual workspaces that can be created and stored with just a few different mouse clicks. You can do whatever you need there to configure your layout accordingly. When we're talking about the overview and the data lister, you have the head navigator, you have the data lister here, which is just a list of files within a given folder and what the channels are for each one of those. Now from there, you can also open the channel editor and the channel preview for each of the channels to clearly identify the data that you're looking at. If we do the time data analysis project, it's a single click operation to give you the results. From here, you can simply quickly pull whatever files you wish to compare from the drag and drop menu and the selecting dialog box that opens up. You can select the analysis that you wish to use and change the settings you wish to use. And when you're getting into the detailed interactions, it's a very simplistic interface. It's modeled after our lab compact analysis software. So you have a series of quick action item buttons here, and then you can select what graph you want, graph 1, graph 2, what analysis you're looking for. And as you select on each analysis, you can change some of the parameters right here in this window. You can also design the layout and fine-tune your highlighted interest points. And you can quickly toggle between the analysis and the placement of where you have the analysis on your graph itself. Totally up to you, however you want to look at it and analyze your data. Now, when we get into the compliance reporting, it's very simplistic, easy way to do it. It's broken down as you select the button, which I'll show you here in the demo shortly. You just quickly select your mandatory reporting, which are listed here in the pop-up dialog. And if you want some optional or extra analyses, you can do that as well. And you can see the fluctuation strength, the roughness, and the sharpness. And you also notice that you'll see the 95 percentile, 5th percentile, and overall. Now, when you do look at the data analysis, you will see some breakdowns here. And what you'll see here is the average cubic. You'll see the N95. I'll show you this live here shortly. But it has different acronyms over here. And you can also find out which each of these are. So you can see level, A, equalize, and so on and so forth. You can also store the ISO mandatory single values and complete analysis within the individual tabs of the same Excel file. So if you have multiple recordings, you can have a single report that maintains all of these, or you can change the report name during the export and create a new report altogether. So it all depends on how you want to go forward with that. So enough of me jibber jabbering and showing you presentations. I've had enough of that for the day. Hopefully, I'm assuming you guys have too. So how about we switch over and get into the actual demonstration of the software. So this is our software. It's live. It's HEADScape 1.1, as you can see listed here. And this is how it will open up. I have already defined one of my favorite folders, which is in the Head Navigator, and I've identified the folder that I like to use. I did use my boss as a guinea pig, and he was more than gracious enough to offer me some recordings. I don't know if he's still online, but if he is, he's the best boss in the world. Only thing makes him greater is the pay raise I hope he'll give me someday. If not, I totally understand. Anyways, back to this. Once you select the file that you're looking for in the data lister, you will see the path to the folder that you're working on. You're going to see the available HDF files in here as well. And if you highlight one of these, it'll show you the channels that have been recorded with this file. You can see that down here. So as we select through these, you'll see that they're all the same, but they are different titles. They're different, excuse me. It's the same channels because it's the same setup and configuration. Consistency is key. If we wanted to open up the files in Channel Viewer or Channel Editor, you just simply click this button here. It'll bring up the channels and your preview here. You can see the preview. You have an FFT, you have your time, and then your FFT versus time down here. If you're ever curious what you can do with these graphs, simply click on this little eye here in the corner, and it'll let you know that you can edit, set, or delete a data marker. Same thing here. Click on the graph, and again, edit, set, delete, or send the curve front to back. You can change whatever channel you're looking for. You can also turn on and off of these. You can toggle awaiting, and you can turn off and on each of these graphs if you're interested. If you make any changes, say for example, you need the calibration was off, the sampling rate was off, the data range was off, you forgot, the equalization is off, whatever might require you to make a change. And once you make the change, you can hit Save Changes here. It'll save it to the HDF. I always recommend you copy paste, make a change to the copy, and then you can go from there. That way you still have the original data. Nevertheless, let's close this out. You can also add files into that as well through that same interface. I probably should have showed that to you, but I think you guys get it. Moving on, if I open up the files in the time data analysis project, this gets to the meat and potatoes of the HEADScape software. In this example, you can see here, it reads automatically what the title of the recording is. If I come over here and switch it differently, excuse me, I can drag and drop this file over here, and it's going to change the view here. If I click on this first one, you can now see that we have two graphs available to us. If we want to show both graphs at the same time, I can check this here, close this window. It'll do a quick calculation. And now we have the new resultant. So let's switch back to just the doggy daycare because it's got my boss talking because it makes me laugh. Anyways, and then if you have too many, say for example, you don't want this guy in here anymore, let's uncheck. There we go, check this guy. Let's remove it, we don't need it. If you need to set limits or mark navigation, you can switch between the two. If I grab a different one here, say for example, let's look at our office instead. You'll notice that we've made a change. The results on the graph on the screen are not up to date. So you can simply click this or close this dialog. And you can navigate between the two graphs once again. It helps if you leave a check mark in the box. So now the other items that you have is if we move down here, we can show the analyses that are available. For this case, we have the time signal here. We have two analyses available. We have level versus time, loudness, sharpness, specific tonality, hearing model versus time, tonality, frequency versus time, and tonality model, hearing model versus time. All of these are included in the software package. They're not required an extra license. If you buy the software, you get these items. So in this case, let's go ahead and get rid of the level versus time because I don't think we need it. Let's look over at the loudness versus time instead because that's more interesting to us, for example. And let's switch over to, we'll leave it at FFT versus time. So let's recalculate because again, the results are not up to date. You can see your progress across the top or across the bottom. This is a great time to poke my management for a new PC because you can see how slow it goes with this PC. Just saying. But nevertheless, if you have a good performing PC, this is what I would call a standard model IT Dell PC. It works okay. It does what it needs to do. There's a lot of data getting crunched though. All right, we got our result here. So moving forward, so you can see the result. We can close the window. You can do lots of different things. Again, if you click in the window, click on the eye, you can edit, set, and delete curves, markers, same here. And lastly, down here as well. Here's the shortcut keys if you want to use those as well. Moving on, if we, for example, grab this graph, let's look at the properties. Looks like in the legend, we're using the channel name. We can turn it to none. You can see the channel names are gone. We can turn them back on just here. And we have A weighting selected currently. Although we have no A weighting analysis. Well, we have A weighting analysis down here in FFT versus time. We can select what channels we're looking at. If you just want to look at one channel versus two, as Dr. Genowit already alluded to, binaural recordings are imperative for this analysis and this data acquisition. So the more channels, the better. But if you're merging a few different recordings together and you need more time, then by all means, grab what channels you're looking for. And then lastly, this button here, we can turn on our mandatory ISO 12913-2 reporting, and we can even select the optional reportings as well if needed. Once we've selected what we wanted to see, you can close that, hit this export to Excel button, and it'll generate a new report, which I'll show you here in just a second. Last thing I was going to show you here is there's two other buttons here that if you hover, you can see what's going on. For example, you don't really need the time history. It's not interesting to you. You can shrink it down and focus on the two analyses that you're looking for. And you can do some magnification into the diagram as needed. So now let's look at the report as it was. If I bring the report up here, bear with me just a second. And switch over to what you are looking at. This is the ISO 12913-2 standardized report format. And what you can see here is you can see that I did the checking out, walking to the car, and also standing in line at the Home Depot to get the soundscape environment analysis. And what I chose to evaluate was the standard level versus time, loudness percentiles, N5, 95, and 9/95, and the A-weighted LAEQs as listed here. Here you get the overall values for each of those in the left and the right ear, so you can see the variations. Interestingly enough, when you're checking out at Home Depot and walk into your car, it's a little bit quieter than it is actually standing in line. Go figure. Nevertheless, you also have the backup data here on these other sheets. So if we switch over to sheet 2, you can see the backup analysis that supports each one of those calculations. These are all in standard head Excel output format. So you have your header information. You do have your GPS if you want your coordinates are listed here and you have that data. What type of analysis we're looking at, frequencies, sound pressures, so on and so forth for each of the recordings. And with that software, this report and the acquisition as collected, as we already described, you are ISO compliant and you can report out based on these figures. I know there was a lot of information in 22 minutes or less. I'm going to turn my webcam on here. I don't know if anybody really wants to see me. Feel free. You pick. Let me unshare my screen, and I am here to answer any questions anybody has about this. But I refuse to lie to you. So if I don't know the question or the answer, I will go find out, and I'll find out the answer and I'll get it back to you. And I believe if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. And one question came in, and the correct answer is no, very slimming. And the price is right on. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking over at my question pane in case anyone does have a question. And I don't see any questions at this point. Oh, I do see some friends though. Look at those guys. Aha. Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate you. You guys are the best. You know, there's a couple of people online I might have argued with once or twice, but nevertheless, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining. I am much obliged. Always good to see friends. So if there's no other questions, that's it, guys. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the HEADScape software and watching my demo. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We will answer whatever questions we can. Like I said, if we don't know the answer, we'll get back to you with the correct answer as soon as we get it. Thanks again. Much obliged. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Darius. You like the beard?